Well, talking about good things, let's talk about some good things, because right here in the great state of Texas, deep in the heart of Texas, Austin, Texas, baby, we had a really great night last night in our local elections, primarily in shutting down Prop A. And this is just a really crucial fight and a really beautiful victory. And we're going to get into some of the bad characters surrounding it in a second. But it was a really critical fight because for people who aren't familiar with what's been happening in Austin, like many places around the country, has been sort of facing the brunt of this affordability crisis, which is caused by mass inequality, is caused by a system that puts property values over human lives. And it really, especially for people who are from here, like me and my family, there has been this kind of crisis feeling of, Austin sort of losing its soul, right? And that's a very classic thing. Talk about when people from Austin like, oh, Austin was better 10 years ago, 20 years ago, etc. I'm not getting into the cultural stuff. I'm getting into the kind of cruelty, especially when it comes to policing and houseless folks, right? And this kind of right-wing movement that's been very well funded has over the past couple of years, won a couple of big victories, sort of pushing back against the city's more progressive bent, right? Anyway, I don't want to get a whole history lesson of the city of progressives and et cetera in Austin, but this group, Save Austin Now, that was able to implement a really, really brutal crackdown on homelessness in the city of Austin. They tried to do even more, and they tried to force the city to increase the amount of police that it has on its payroll. A completely arbitrary metric for how many police that they were wanting the city to hire. But they basically were trying to push this kind of, law and order, conservative freak out politics and take it as far as they could. And it got repudiated big time last night by a vote. I think from what I was seeing before we're coming in, something like 69 to 31. People voted against Prop A, which was basically a proposal that was going to increase the amount of police. I think about 2 extra police for every 1,000 citizens here, right? It was cooked up by this group called Save Austin Now, which presents itself as a nonpartisan, just sort of citizen initiative group, but it's effectively run and controlled by the Travis County GOP. Anyway, through the work of a lot of folks, this was shot down in pretty impressive fashion. And let me share this right quick from the Texas Observer, which for folks in Texas, this is a publication you should definitely be following. Gus Bova here says, Austin voters reject proposal to superfund police in victory for progressives. On Tuesday evening, voters in the state's capital resoundingly rejected a proposal to bloat the city's police budget at a cost of up to $600 million over 5 years. The measure would have mandated a staffing ratio of 2 sworn cops for every 1,000 Austin residents, among other requirements. The proposal, a brainchild of Save Austin Now, a local reactionary coalition, including the police union and the Travis County GOP chair, failed Tuesday by a 69 to 31 margin. I want to get some of our good folks in here. This is a good piece. Tuesday's ballot item to overfund the police, I like that framing. Also, a citizen-initiated ballot measure drew the ire of other public sector employee groups who predicted the new money would come from their own budget. Even the firefighter and EMS unions, often political allies of police unions, campaigned against the policy. Save Austin Now and the Austin Police Association tried to drum up support by scaremongering about a recent increase in homicides in Austin. Let me get here. I want to make sure that we get Seneca's quote.
Oh, nice.
Seneca, if you're not familiar, does great work here in Austin. It's also a guest on Left Reckoning and I believe Majority Report, as well as TMBS as well. Let me just make sure we're getting it. Here we go. At a cooperatively run brew pub in North Austin, a lefty crowd gathered to celebrate the election results before a rendition of the labor song Solidarity Forever. Seneca Savoy of the Austin DSA, one of the various groups that canvassed against Save Austin Now, addressed the crowd of about 75. We celebrate today and we work to build the structures that prevent them from ever winning again, Savoy told told the crowd, Save Austin Now did not simply trip over their own feet; they were defeated. And I really think that framing is important.
Nice.
Too. I want to get into some of the villains in a second, but before we go too far, just while we're in this piece, Matt Makowiak, however you say his name, who's the Travis County GOP chair, the leader of Save Austin Now. This guy's been sort of trying to push this nonsense. I think Gus Bova sort of gives everybody a clear picture of who this kind of guy is. Meanwhile, at an event preemptively deemed an election night victory party, Matt Makowiak, the Travis County Republican chair and co-founder of Save Austin Now, took the stage to discuss defeat. For Makowiak, the last 2 years of cultivating fear of the homeless and crime have raised his political profile and stature as a fundraiser. Save Austin Now raised nearly $2 million prior to the homeless camping vote, and $1 million in just the last month. His own public relations firm has profited handsomely. Right? Remember, there's always grubbers with this shit. Has profited handsomely, and he reportedly enjoys a life split between Austin and is that a Texas city? The city of Miami, Florida. And in an October profile in the Austin American Statesman, Makowiak had said that if his police funding measure were to fail, he might leave Austin altogether. Something that I think we would all be very happy about. Yet
that's a Trump like, yeah, if I don't win Minnesota, I'm never coming back here.
Yeah. Yet in his Tuesday night concession speech, he struck a more defiant tone after a touch-and-go analogy to Michael Jordan, who failed over and over again. Kowiak promised to keep fighting for city council seats and to perhaps try another ballot initiative next year. We're not going to save Austin now tonight, but we will. Not only
save Austin then.
What?
Save Austin now save Austin then.
Yeah, save Austin. I mean, it's a good victory to prevent needless police funding. And the thing that was so notable about the campaign that made me really happy, and I only did this once or twice, but when I was able to talk to people on the phones doing phone banking for the Vote No campaign. It was interesting to talk to folks who really didn't like this group overstepping themselves. And basically, I remember talking to a guy who said he voted for, the more reactionary homeless ban, which was, a travesty. But he said that, he felt that they've now moved from sort of asking questions to people to trying to control the city, right? Again, I would disagree with that framing in general, but it was. I think what I'm trying to say is that the fact that it was such an overwhelming no vote was a good indication that this kind of right wing turn that we've seen them have some success with might not be as long lived as some of us sort of had feared.
It's important to know, it's great to know how much extra room they have to run and the limits of that stuff. I think this is the same with CRT. I think everyone's running to blame CRT for Terry McAuliffe losing in Virginia. At the same time, I don't know if we're going to play this clip now or in the post game, but there's this clip where Anderson Cooper wants to blame socialists, and Van Jones is like, you undercutted any economic appeal this guy could make. All he had to do was say, actually, parents, you don't have a say in your kid's school, right? Which is not a great message as a politician. And so, I think, and there's countervailing, I tweeted about last night, but in Colorado, the CRT stuff didn't lead to actually, there's depressed turnout among Republicans, right? Mm-hmm. So, and so we don't want to, we've talked about it a fair bit on the show, but I think there's credibility to say, don't freak out about it to the extent that it overrides everything. If you had a stronger message in Virginia, and it wasn't this waffling bullshit, who knows, maybe you would have won that. I'm not going to make any promises, because Virginia seems to, the other thing is Virginia always seems to go against the new president in those governor races. So who really, I think there's a little bit over interpretation going on there because of who it probably serves.
I think so.
But yeah, I mean that passed the question 2 in Minneapolis about that was so-called defund, but was really sort of a public safety thing toward maybe defunding some time. But none of the politicians really actually had a commitment to that, right? That failed, and the cops are happy because they think it's a big vote of confidence, right? But ultimately, this. the struggles are bigger than that. Like I said, like Robin Wansley Warlabaugh won as an independent socialist, and then to contrast that with the disappointment with India Walton, which is very disappointing that she lost to Ben Brown on a write-in candidate, right? And that says some of the that really, I think, illustrates the uphillness of taking over the Democratic Party, even if you can beat them in a primary. That said, like I think it's also the case that none of us would know who India Walton was if she just ran as a write-in candidate during the general, right? She would have got like a percentage or two, and so we would have never had this discussion about India Walton winning the primary, which turns out not actually shooting to winning the election, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think on the Walton, maybe we'll get into maybe Virginia more in just a second, but like I think on the Walton stuff, Bronco Marchetich had a really good piece, and Jackman sort of breaking down one, some of the things that you would expect about wealth and power in the city of Buffalo and who showed up, but also making the point that, these machines take a while to be built. And when we're talking about Brown's machine in Buffalo, that took decades to build. And that doesn't mean that we can't have victories right now and immediately, but sort of understand that some of these things can be very deeply entrenched. And it takes that kind of long view work to be able to build things that can defend all of our gains alongside, getting new ones for working people. But I don't know, before we get more into that stuff in Virginia, I do just want to take one last victory lap here in Austin, if that's all right. Yeah. I want to share one more Macawak. So I'm hedging my bets, I guess.
Macawak.
I don't want to learn it, frankly. It's a name I'm very happy to forget. But boy is Cope. Boy is like injecting some straight up copium. And Gus Bova was talking about, he gave this prolonged speech about Michael Jordan. And I just wanted
can we just pause on that? So he's his Michael Jordan in the 80s. Like, I guess so, man. Where he's like scoring 35 points a game and like just destroying everyone, but like not able to play as a team. Like I'm just trying to understand. Like who are the Pistons?
He didn't make his high school team.
Look, if Austin DSA is the bad boy Pistons, then I think we're in pretty good shape.
Well, our boy is coping hardcore, and I just want to continue to join in the fun. This is him last night. Quoting everyone's favorite boy, Winston Churchill. And now it's not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning. So a nice little riddle there for all who are interested in it. I will just say to Matt and all of those assholes over there in the Travis County GOP, cope harder. But before we move on, there is one more person that I do want to highlight and call out. Another person who is trying to push a certain kind of reactionary narrative. Well, actually, before I get there, I do just want to note, when I was starting to feel really confident that it was going to be a no vote, Matt, on Prop A here, was when Macawak and all those freaks started really pushing these kind of gruesome crime stories, right? And that was pretty much all that they were doing, was just, telling about bad things that have been happening to people in the community, which, again, is just such a low kind of way to run a campaign. But to me, they didn't have much to go on anymore, because they realized that they were losing ground, folks. Because the Prop A campaign, the vote no on Prop A campaign was fairly positive. I mean, it had a defensive posture in the sense of saying, like, don't let this bad thing happen to us. But it was saying, don't let them increase the police budget at the expense of all of these other programs that are very crucial to you. Both things, emergency services like firefighters and EMS, after school programs, et cetera, like things that benefit the community. And it was able to craft a narrative, I think, that was like really inspiring people to say, like, hey, let's protect the best parts of this city and this community, and maybe even expand them, and not just, send in more armed people to harass folks. But I wanted to highlight an unfortunate new member of our community here who was just wrong as hell. And I always love taking a moment to celebrate when this asshole is wrong. Frankly, he is a lot. Maybe let's start here before we get to my commentary on him. But little Elon, somebody who in my opinion, doesn't give a shit about Texas. This is somebody who, when he first came here with his gigafactory, negotiated tax breaks that were, on taxes that were supposed to go to the school system around here, upwards of $68 million. Who somehow is very, very concerned about the state of Austin. Zaid Jalani, everybody knows him. He's a quack. He's a hack, quack. But Elon Musk, in his kind of typical way, just sort of jumping in here and saying, Austin should be its own city, not a San Francisco copycat. Yeah, I can't imagine. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll just read, if you scroll up a little bit, I'll read what Zaid says.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Can you Control Plus to make it a little bit bigger? Austin implemented one of its biggest police budget cuts. Their homicide rate soared over the next year, and today the surge is larger than most of the country. Now voters will decide to boost the ranks of the police. So again, for Fox News, of course, so Zaid doing the pro cop stuff. I mean, that thing is let's be the edgy pro cop people. But of course, Elon's a big follower.
So, but here are the people involved in this: Joe Rogan, new Austinite; Elon Musk, new Austinite. I can't imagine. If you're saying Austin should be its own city, not a San Francisco copycat, I can't imagine a worse argument for that than having a kind of bloated billionaire who's not from here, doesn't give a shit about this place, coming in here and telling people what to do here if he doesn't want this city to be a copycat of San Francisco. Wasn't a particular dig, but my response is pretty clear. Fucking ship off, jackass. Anyways, very happy that Prop A failed. That McElwack, who again, did I note that he said that he would potentially? Yeah, we did note that he said that he might have to leave Austin if Prop A fails.
Deuces.
I think he should follow through on his threat, and it'd be great if he could take little Elon along with him.
Did you see that Baker Mayfield did a story that's was one of those pro cop statistics said how much the murder rate soared?
Baker Mayfield, the quarterback.
Yes, I believe that's.
He's from Austin.
Right, so that makes sense. Yeah, but then he went to Oklahoma, I guess. So
yeah, he did. He's a traitor.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. That he would be
take the L, Baker. His interventions, but I don't know. Frankly, it was interesting because you did start to see this kind of national media interest in the race. At least some people trying to put their finger on the scale one way or the other, and seeing that just be completely ignored, I think is also a very, very good thing.
I think because I was worried about that. I'm like, damn, if so here's this. I'll put it up here. Baker Mayfield Instagram story and that sort of shit. And take the L, Baker.
Yeah, so rich people are getting worked up. Rich people who have very loose relationships with the city. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Baker. He's from here, etc. I know he still lives here, but he also lives, in Cleveland too, right? All these people who have 1 foot in, 1 foot out are very, very. Elon Musk is barely in Austin in the first place. He always makes a big deal about the fact that he lives in Star City, Starbase, whatever the fuck, Texas, that he's renamed without the consent of the people there, Poca Chica down South Texas. I mean, and Matt McElwack, going in between here and Miami. All these people were very concerned about the safety of Austin, who seem to spend almost, less than half of the year in the city.
They're particularly concerned with the parts of Austin that are their property.
I think so. And anyway, I'm sure we'll have some folks on from the campaign to give a little bit more of an in-depth look at it. But boy, I was saying to Matt yesterday before we went on, I was like, I don't know if I could spiritually take another loss like that. So I'm fired up. I think that's good. I think it's a good springboard. And I like the way that Seneca frames it. This was not them falling or failing. This was us beating them. And I think that's how we should take that energy going forward.
Right on.